This was the scene on the Kansas prairie in 1872. On this wide historical canvas, Mankato was born. Mankato was settled in 1872 with the name of Jewell Center because the settlement was in the center of Jewell County. Sometime prior to this, David Blank had located on the site and opened a blacksmith shop. The land which was platted for the town was 320 acres in size, part of which had been preempted by Jack Mango in 1870. Three men had faith enough in starting a town in the center of the county that they campaigned for the new town. These men formed a town company, surveyed and platted 320 acres, which later became the town site for Jewell Center. These men took office in the town county. M.W. Whitney, President, P.S. McCutcheon, Secretary, and G.S. Bishop, Treasurer. It was started with the idea of making a county seat, and accordingly the next year, the question of changing the county seat began to be agitated. Immigration to the new town of Jewell Center was so rapid that by April 1st of 1873, the people thought the town was large enough to challenge the people in Jewell City for the location for the county seat. The first petition to have the county seat moved was presented to the county commissioners on April 7, 1873. The election was ordered May 13, 1873, and a majority vote of 235 in favor of Jewell Center was the result of the voting. Jewell Center, 861, Jewell City, 626. The situation was still in doubt. Jewell City people were unhappy with the result. Understandably, they wished to retain the county seat. Consequently, the second election was held on June 28th of 1875. This time, the vote was 971 for Jewell Center and only 756 for Jewell City, giving Jewell Center a majority vote of 206. C.W. Pettigrew erected a store building and stocked it with merchandise hauled from the nearest railroad at Edgar, Nebraska. The store building erected by Pettigrew must have been the first building on the new town site. The blacksmith shop operated by David Blank was there before, but it probably was not much of a structure. The town company erected a townhouse, the lower part of which was occupied by a store and the upper story used as a public hall. A combination saw and grist mill was in operation. The confusion of delivering mail was the main cause of changing the name of the town from Jewell Center to Mankato. Letters addressed to people living in Jewell Center would be found in the Jewell City post office, and letters intended for Jewell City would find their way to the Jewell Center. This caused delay in delivering mail to the proper person, as well as extra work for the postal employees, to say nothing of the wear and tear on the disposition of everyone concerned. The campaign was so organized to change the name of the towns. Mrs. Lily Flood Moyer, writing an article for the Jewell County Record, December 1st, 1955, said Jewell City was established first, so it was up to Jewell Center to change its name. Her parents, Mr. and Mrs. Francis Flood, had come to Jewell County with a caravan of 7 wagons in February of 1872. By 1880, the name of Alta was chosen to replace the name of Jewell Center. That year, the name Alta was used for a few months as a good name for the little town, once known as Jewell Center. By this time, it was learned that there was another town in Kansas with the name of Alta. Once again, there was a mix-up in the mail, and a search began for a new name. 2 versions of selecting the name Mankato for the town of Jewell Center is given by A.T. Andreas in History of the State of Kansas, published in 1883. The first theory given was that H.R. Hill, who had attended school in Mankato, Blue Earth County, Minnesota, wanted the town to be called Mankato because of this sentimental reason. Mr. Wint Kyle said the name was proposed by his father, Ira Kyle, who had a Civil War comrade living in Mankato, Minnesota. Perhaps Mr. Hill and Mr. Kyle had discussed this in their conversation, had settled upon the name of Mankato for this little town on the Kansas prairie. It is believed that Mankato, Kansas, and Mankato, Minnesota, are the only two towns in the entire world with the name of Mankato. Mankato has had rail service from 3 different railroads throughout the years. A branch of the Missouri Pacific Railroad, which ran to Burr Oak before turning around. The Missouri Pacific Depot was at the very southwest part of town. The grain elevator, many citizens remember from the 50s and 60s, along Highway 36, was not the actual depot. The Rock Island Railroad, which included a passenger train, the Rocket. The depot for the Rock Island was at the north end of High Street in Mankato, one of the first streets brick-lined all the way to the railroad. Forrest Fair, a prominent Mankato banker, would often drive to Rock Island Depot when the afternoon train would come in. A now-deceased Mankato man often told the store that when he returned from Korea and got off the train, Forrest Fair greeted him and gave him a ride to his sister's house since he was a day late getting into town and no family was there to greet him. Today, the Kyle Railroad still runs freight on the old Rock Island line. The heart of any town is its business. The Mankato Business District has had many changes over the years. Although the actual businesses have changed, many of the buildings on Commercial Street have been a part of Mankato for many years. Here is a pictorial review of some of these buildings. Depending on when you lived in Mankato, the businesses you may recall may be different than they are today, or 50 years ago, or 120 years ago. If these buildings could talk, they would have many stories to tell. It is impossible to mention all of the former and current businesses in Mankato, however. Many who grew up in Mankato through the last half of the 1900s will always remember the First National Bank, the Youth Theater, and McCarthy Hardware, as well as the store at the south end of the 100 block of North Commercial Street, once Wagner Drug Store, and today Mankato Professional Pharmacy. Wouldn't it be great to once again go into Haleseed Shoe Store or the old State Exchange Bank? The Jewell County Historical Museum buildings were once businesses. It was always a treat to go to the Gamble store, or whatever it was before it was the Gambles, and the hardwood floors, trinkets, and candy counters at Ray's, Five and Dime are fondly remembered when walking into the present-day possibilities. For some reason, Mankato Plumbing is still L&B, while others call the building at the south end of Commercial on the west side of the street Drylings. Today, Hidden Treasures Quilt Shop. For a drink, soda, malt, or sundae, prepared at one of the soda fountains at Hale's Drugs, Wagner Drug Store, or even the new RK Shopper food stand. The original Bob's Inn with its wooden booths and stools at the K&C Cafe are remembered for their great food. Barbershops and hairdressers have come and gone, but the 3 stories of the once Coral Hotel still stand proudly. Highway 36 restaurants and hotels are also remembered fondly by older citizens, and never to be known by the young. The Sweet and Cream and Buffalo Rome and Bob's are still serving great food, so names do, in fact, live on. Gas station brands and names have changed, but many locations remain the same. The Mankato City Park is still quite lovely with its many trees, its famous limestone bridge, and shelter house. A Concordia photographer taking pictures of the park in 1978 commented on how it was just a beautiful park. The Quonset of the fairgrounds has stood for many years, and although there are no baseball or football games at that location as there were in years past, it still has a place in Mankato. Agriculture is still at the heart of town, with Mankato Livestock, air-conditioned sale barn, and the grain elevator still standing tall, waiting for grain to be delivered by local farmers, then shipped out by rail or truck. In the early days of Mankato, many Victorian homes were built by businessmen and their families who were fairly well-to-do. Here is a pictorial display of these houses. The historic limestone Jewell County Jail is located at the corner of Center and Madison Streets in Mankato, 1 block east of the courthouse, and that is its legal address. There is no street number. The building operated as the county's jail from 1899 to 1982. It is made of limestone. It is currently owned by the Jewell County Historical Society. The jail has had little restoration, particularly the portion of the building which served as the sheriff's residence. However, the Historical Society has done quite a bit to preserve the building. The jail has peek holes used to monitor the prisoners' carvings on the walls, and even has basement cells. The post-rock Jewell County Jail was registered as a National and State Historic Building in 1995. There have been many churches and denominations throughout the years in Mankato. According to the book Prairie Jewels by Irma Dillon and Jerry Shute, the churches and denominations have been part of Mankato are as follows. These churches no longer exist in Mankato. However, those growing up during the last half of the 1900s may just remember them. The Mankato Assembly of God Church, the United Brethren Church, was located north of the present Catholic Church. The Free Methodist Church, United Presbyterian Church, was located at the corner of Highway 36 and South Center Street. Across the street to the east of the Lutheran Church, the Mankato Wesleyan Methodist Church was on the north side of Highway 36 on Lincoln Street. Although these congregations didn't survive societal changes, the churches still going strong in Mankato today are the St. Teresa of the Infant Jesus Catholic Church, right across from the Jewell County Courthouse, the Mankato United Methodist Church, which started in 1873. The Evangelical Lutheran Church is on the south side of Highway 36 on Center Street. It's celebrating its 150th anniversary later in 2022. The Mankato Baptist Church on East Highway 36, erected in 1965. And the Mankato Christian Church, organized in 1894. The 94-year-old landmark church was standing proudly at the corner of the highway and Commercial Street in Mankato until it was destroyed by a fire. But the congregation rallied and built a new church on the same ground, with the first service held in August of 1995. Education was important to the citizens of Mankato. In the days before unified school districts, District 76, covering sections 21, 15, and 16 of Center Township, educated students in this frame building, built around December 1877, which was directly across from what is today the Mankato City Building and formerly the Armory. The next building was a large stone building built in 1885. It was on the site of the Armory/City Building. This large building served all grades until 1909, when it was used as a grade school until 1957, when a new grade school was built on Northwest Street. The 1957 building still serves as the Rock Hills Elementary School to this day. In 1910, a new three-story high school was completed at a cost of only $25,000. It was located in the east part of Mankato, west of the current high school's parking lot, basically on the current FFA alfalfa field. It had steam heating and modern-day lighting. It had the distinction of being the only exclusive city high school in the 6th Congressional District. It served District 76 until 1937. The school and city were co-partners with the management of the community building, formerly the YMCA, and the Mankato Opera House, so basketball games were played in the community building, and school plays and other entertainment given by schools were performed in the Opera House. In 1937, a new high school was built, this time on the west side of North High Street. It housed the high school until 1968, when consolidation increased the size of classes and more space was needed. After 1968, it was the junior high building until the early 1980s. Today, it is still used by Rock Hill schools. In 1968, a new high school building was built, located southeast of the old high school, used from 1910 to 1937. Today, this building is used as a 612 building for Rock Hill schools. The State Exchange Bank, Mankato, Kansas, was chartered September 17, 1887. The bank was organized and chartered by a group of people from the state of Vermont with full ownership by this group. In December 1888, they placed D.H. Stafford in the bank as manager. Stafford and Associates in Mankato purchased the interests of the Eastern people in the last half of 1908. Later, the Staffords bought all stocks in the bank. From December of 1888 until January of 1964, the State Exchange Bank was under the management of the Stafford family. In January of 1964, the bank stock was purchased by Richard L. Diamond and John B. Menhusen. Both of these men are natives of Mankato. In May of 1964, D.K. Balch, a lifelong member of the banking profession, joined the staff of the bank and remained with them until his death on May 13, 1971. For many growing up in Mankato, the First National Bank at the northwest corner of Commercial and Jefferson Streets is a familiar landmark. In 1886, John Porter Fair came to Mankato and purchased the Bank of Mankato, which he operated as a private bank. In 1899, he obtained a state charter and adopted the name Mankato State Bank. By 1903, a national charter was secured in the name of Mankato National Bank, and the name was changed in 1923 to the First National Bank in Mankato. Mr. Fair celebrated his 100th birthday in 1943. His son, Forrest Fair, the grandson of John Porter Fair, was a well-respected Mankato business person and was the bank president of First National Bank for many years, and is surely remembered by those growing up in Mankato around this time. The First National Bank building is still standing in Mankato and remains a testament to the outstanding work ethic of those men constructing it in the late 1800s. In August 1955, citizens of Mankato voted to build a swimming pool near the city park on the west side of town. 434 votes were cast in favor of the pool, and only 92 votes were cast against it. In the June 28, 1956 edition of the Jewell County Record, it was noted that the construction of the pool was about a month behind schedule, but it was going to be worth it, as we all today know. Upon the opening, 530 children and 30 adults enrolled in the Red Cross's swimming program lessons that began at the opening of the pool. The Mankato swimming pool opened on Sunday, July 15, 1956 at 1 p.m. Charles Sanger, the manager at the time, noted that at least 300 took advantage of a swim. Rain forced the pool to close that day at 7:30. Back then, season tickets were only $6 for adults and $4 for children 11 and under. The pool was open from 1 p.m. to 10 p.m. daily, with Red Cross lessons held in the mornings. Today, the pool is still providing citizens with the opportunity to take swimming lessons or to just have some fun. Dorothy D. Allen, 78, for over 50 years Jewell County's most prominent and respected physician, met death in an automobile accident about 1.5 miles east of Mankato, Kansas, on Thursday, August 26, 1954. She was born in Jewell County on October 3, 1876, to Jake and Elizabeth Allen. She attended grade school and high school in Mankato. She went to Kansas City, where she studied medicine at the Women's Medical School. Upon graduation, she returned here and commenced her practice of medicine with the then-beloved Dr. A.B. Peters until his death in 1915. She became nationally renowned as the outstanding woman country doctor in the U.S. She attempted to retire in about 1940, but due to the scarcity of doctors at that time because of World War II, she decided to continue practice. Later, she was unable to retire due to the popular demand of the people of Jewell County. For 54 years, she was recognized as country surgeon for the Rock Island Railroad and spent almost as much time as a Jewell County physician. Up to the time of her death, she was accepted by the medical profession, especially in Concordia, where the majority of her surgery was conducted, as the most proficient diagnostician in the state, for which she was many times written up in the American medical papers. Dr. Allen's life is a saga of woman's survival and progress. Ad astra per astrum. Her physical equipment seemed adequate for the day and night combat with the elements. The phases of quiet and beauty of every season were her delight. We enshrine her among the most worthy pioneers of women in medicine. Rest in peace, Dorothy. A wooden courthouse was first constructed when the county seat was moved to Mankato. According to Weltmer's book, the wooden building was on Lot 12 and Block 37 in the original town of Mankato, on the site of Dryling's department store, and in today's Mankato, Hidden Treasures Quilt Shop. A wooden building was not considered to be a safe building for housing county records because of the possibility of fire loss. In the year 1887, the railroad came to Belleville, Mankato, and Smith Center on the west. There was great building expansion in Mankato. The present First National Bank building and the building occupied by the State Exchange Bank and then the Pizza Hut, and many other buildings were constructed in Mankato. A new brick courthouse was built in Mankato in the center of Block 23. 50 years of use caused deterioration in the brick courthouse. In the early part of the year, 1935, at the request of the county commissioners and other local people, lawyers Jess R. White of Mankato, State Representative, and D.M. McCarthy, Jewel Mitchell State Senator, wrote a bill to present this to the state legislature for a new courthouse. It promptly passed and was signed by the governor. The county commissioners wanted to construct a substantial building and at the same time furnish work for many men in the county needing help. The architect, Joseph Radoninski, a former state architect, decided the courthouse should be constructed of Randall limestone rock, and the floors of concrete reinforced by steel. The stone was quarried near Randall and hauled to Mankato, where it was dressed and laid into walls. Jewell County paid about $35,000 on the construction costs, and the Work Progress Administration paid about twice that amount. Today, it would probably be a quarter to $500,000 to build the same building. The paved parking lot to the west of the current courthouse covers the site of the old brick courthouse. The courthouse sits proudly at the north end of the downtown business district on Commercial Street. Although Mankato is a small town, several residents have been active in many state and national offices. Two men from Mankato have represented Mankato in Congress. They are Hayes White and Win Smith. E. Penner was a member of the Kansas State House of Representatives, and Alva Menhusen was a member of the Kansas State Senate. Mrs. Frank W. Boyd, a member of a newspaper family, has received many state and national honors. She is the only woman to have received the William Allen White Citation of Merit. The City Chamber of Commerce sponsored a dinner in her honor on her 95th birthday on December 13, 1971. Sharing the honors with Mrs. Boyd was another chipper young lady, Mrs. George Huntington. Mrs. Huntington had already celebrated 96 birthdays. Mrs. Frank W. Boyd has been Kansas of the Year, Kansas Mother of the Year, Woman of Achievement of the National Federation of Press Women. She has been honored with the Emma McKinley Award by the National Editorial Association. Her biography, Rode a Heifer Calf Through College, was published in early 1972, with everyone in town helping. Miss Clara Gates, city librarian, sponsored an autograph party for her in the Mankato City Library. Hayes Baxter White was born near Fairfield, Jefferson County, Iowa, on September 21st of 1855. He attended the rural schools of Jefferson County. In 1875, the year after the grasshopper invasion, they came to Jewell County, making the trip in a covered wagon. He became a farmer near Mankato. He taught school in Mankato in 1876. Mr. White was a member of the Kansas State House of Representatives from 1888 to 1890. He was in the State Senate from 1900 to 1904 He was mayor of Mankato in 1914 and 1915. He was elected as Republican to the 66 and the four succeeding Congresses from March 4, 1919 to March 3, 1929. His election was unsuccessfully contested by W.R. Clark. He was not a candidate for renomination in 1928. In 1929, Hayes B. White retired from active pursuits. He died in Mankato, Kansas on September 29, 1930, and is buried in Mount Hope Cemetery. Bernice, the youngest child and only daughter of Mr. and Mrs. White, was born July 3, 1892, on the farm home of her parents southwest of Mankato. She graduated from the Fine Arts College of Kansas University in 1919. She was a loyal Kansan, a staunch supporter of the Kansas University, and an energetic member of the Republican Party. She married James Malcolm Scott, a graduate of the School of Medicine at Kansas University. Dr. James M. Scott died in May 1937. Bernice took music lessons from Mrs. Newell M. Fair. Later, she studied music at Kansas University. After the death of her husband, she and her small son returned to Mankato. They lived in the home of her parents. She taught private piano lessons in her home. Over the years, she taught many hundreds of children. Wint Smith was born October 7, 1892, in Mankato, Jewell County, Kansas. He attended the public schools and served overseas in the U.S. Army during the First World War. Smith earned his undergraduate degree at the University of Kansas in 1920 and an LL.B. from the Yale University Law School in 1922. He practiced in Kansas City, Kansas, served as an assistant attorney general from 1931 to 1940, attorney for the Kansas Highway Commission during the 1930s, and during World War II served as lieutenant colonel and commanding officer of the 635th Tank Destroyer Battalion from May 1941 to December 1945. He retired a brigadier general and resumed the practice of law. Smith was first elected to the U.S. Congress in 1946 and served from January 3, 1947 to January 3, 1961. He chose not to be a candidate for an eighth term in 1960 and returned to his Mankato home where he engaged in farming and ranching. He died in Wichita, Kansas on April 27, 1976. After a successful three-day revival meeting on February 15th of 1908, a man's brotherhood was formed with nearly 150 men forming a permanent organization on the 17th of the same month of the same year. At the first meeting, it was announced that Mr. and Mrs. D.H. Stafford would give the ground and a check for $10,000 for the erection of a building as headquarters for the Young Men's Christian Association. The rules and regulations of the YMCA were to guide the operation of this building. $5,000 had been raised in Mankato and surrounding areas with interest from this money to be used to support the building and keep it repaired and operating. The YMCA building was erected at 210 North Commercial Street in Mankato. It was a two-story building with a high basement for bowling alleys and ping-pong tables. The building was equipped with a gymnasium, classrooms, and a reading room. Many supporters provided money, furniture, or other items for the building. The building was dedicated on May 23, 1909, with Governor Walter Stubbs as the main speaker. At the time of the dedication, Mankato was one of 20 towns in Kansas to boast a YMCA building and the smallest town in the world to have one. Due to inability to find competent secretaries or managers, the building was reverted to the Methodist Church and in 1924 sold to the city of Mankato for $5,000. The building continued to be used for recreational purposes until a new high school building was built. Mankato High School basketball games were played here. In 1939, the YMCA building's main room, gym, became the Mankato City Library. Throughout the years, organizations have utilized the building, including the Girl Scouts using the top floor during the 1960s. Mankato City offices were also housed in the main floor of the building. Today, the main floor houses a thrift shop, so the building is still providing for families in Mankato. It is impossible to mention all of the citizens and landmarks that make Mankato. Mankato has had its ups and downs over its 150 years of existence. Hopefully, through perseverance, hard work, and ingenuity, it can prosper over the next 150 years.